All things
Mostly your
wellness.
program.
All things wellness today.
Okay.
So go ahead. Remember to look at that one.
Oh, yeah. Hi, I'm Dr. Erin Lucie.
And I'm Micah Lucie.
Welcome to our third episode of our podcast.
Today is going to be all about wellness, functional wellness, peptides, all kinds of fun stuff, and really helping to give a understanding about what functional wellness is all about. You've probably heard that term, functional wellness or functional medicine, functional health. There's a lot of different ways to say it. And I think there's some confusion out there. So we're kind of here to help clear that up, give you some amazing insights as to how it could benefit you and just be a great thing for you to look into.
I originally started into functional or integrative medicine when I worked at a clinic here in Tulsa called Integrative Health. And it was with a physician named as Dr. Jerome Block. Unfortunately, he has passed away, but he really introduced me into anti-aging. He knew that I was already into aesthetics, and I went there to do my to finish up my doctorates and my residency with him. And I was doing preventative medicine at the time, and he was an expert in hormone therapy and introduced me to peptides and all the things that we think of when we think of what are things that are going to create anti-aging and weight loss, and what do we do to keep you healthy, basically.
Yeah, and actually, Dr. Block, because we were dating whenever that was happening, and he really was like the first person I met that was like, man, maybe I should consider health. Just hearing him and learning about the things he was talking about, these alternative ways of thinking, was something I was like, this just sounds incredible. So I actually became, my official title, it's kind of a mouthful, it's Functional Diagnostic Nutrition Practitioner. So just FDNP is what I say. But when it comes to functional health, really what it's looking at is the body as a connected being. You think about health today, like Western medicine, and, as someone that survived cardiac arrest, I have a huge appreciation for Western medicine in saving me in those emergency times. I think it's really where they excel. But functional medicine is saying, hey, let's look at the body as a whole and find out where this imbalance is. Where is communication breakdown happening? You think about if you have a car, if your tire blows, if your engine stops working, you can just replace those parts and the car keeps working. But for the body, it's not that simple.
Everything's connected.
Everything's connected. And, unfortunately, we're in a time where people are really just looking for that quick fix through like a prescription medicine option or looking at surgery, things like that, just to cut something out. But functional medicine is saying, hey, if we can restore balance, restore that communication within the body, all the systems of the body will come together to work better and be fully optimized, be stronger than ever.
Mm-hmm. I think there's a saying, a pill for every ill. And as a provider, like somebody that does write prescriptions and coming from internal medicine, it's kind of hard because you have to, I learned aesthetics first, and then I went into family practice and internal medicine, and then we brought in functional nutrition. And when somebody comes to you, you almost feel like you have to write a prescription, right? If you're just saying, oh, well, you need to eat this, you need to do this, you almost feel like you're not doing enough. And patients want a prescription, but it would be hard for me to just write, you need vacation and you need sleep. And it is a lot easier to say, okay, you need sleep, let me just write a sleeping pill. Or, if you feel fatigued, instead of like really diving deeper into learning what's going on, I can just give you an Adderall or something that's going to wake you up. So it is, we do have that, like as providers, like we want to be able to write prescriptions. But now that I know more about, alternative medicine and functional nutrition, it helps to kind of combine everything together. Like not everything we can fix without medicine. And that's where kind of we work really good as a team, because sometimes we do need prescriptions. And I will say to Micah and his FDNP, people ask like, what is a health coach? And Micah he has the diagnostic portion. Not a lot of health coaches can actually order labs and interpret lab work. Some of them are just going off of what your day-to-day and your lifestyle is. It's more like a lifestyle health coach, as opposed to a diagnostic practitioner, which is doing a deep dive into your labs to figure out what is happening on the inside.
Yeah, for example, gut microbiome testing is one of the tests I really lean on a lot. But what it's telling me is, hey, are there some bacterial infections that we don't know about? Are there some growth happening in bacteria that shouldn't be growing? Are there some imbalances there that we would never catch without testing? And for me, I like to say test, not guess, because the problem I think today is a lot of practitioners just are kind of guessing, like, oh, you have these 4 symptoms. I'm just going to loop that together and call it a thyroid imbalance. So things like that are happening, but we're not getting to the root cause. We're not getting upstream to find out really where this thing started. And that's really the goal. I'm not out here trying to cure or a disease or anything like that. What I am trying to do is fully optimize that person to get their body to work with them instead of against them.
Yeah. So, for example, I would see a patient, they say, oh, I'm tired and I have low libido. I go to work and then I don't have any energy. I just kind of sit at home on the couch. I don't want to play with my kids. I don't want to mow my lawn. I don't have the energy that I need to live the life I want to live. And I would check their hormones and their hormones would be low. Right. So then I would write a prescription for hormones. And even though I do bioidentical hormones now, still a prescription, I would send that prescription in. I would follow up with the patient in 3 months. And sometimes they would be fantastic. And other times I would run their labs and it was like their hormones that I had given them did not even exist. Like their body was not using them. I couldn't find them on their labs. Even I would increase their dose and they still wouldn't feel them. And so it was really kind of mind boggling. Like where are these hormones going? Then I started to put my patients on a 2-week detox before we did hormones to clear out the liver and then they would do better, but it still wasn't always the best. And then I incorporated a 12-week metabolic makeover where I would give them a specific meal plan that they all had to follow. And then they do their detox and then they would do their 12 weeks of meal plan and then they would start their hormones. But it doesn't always work. And one of my favorite tests that Micah made me do was the MRT test. And that test, for me, really showed kind of what was happening with the food that I was eating. Will you tell me about the MRT?
Yeah, so it's a blood-based food immune test. It's looking at 176 different items, foods, chemicals, drinks, all kinds of things. And the goal is to understand not just if I eat something, I feel bad. It's really understand how your body is responding to different foods. What I love about that test too is it doesn't matter if you've never eaten or had any of those items on that list, it's still going to show reaction. So for example, one of our team members here actually did that test, had a huge sensitivity to avocado, and she's never had one in her entire life. So she never would have guessed that. And I remember we had another client that, she's like, I'm eating healthy. I'm doing all the right things. She actually had a carrot sensitivity. Just like, how are you going to know that unless you go do testing? So like I said, knowledge is power. So really understanding, like, man, these foods, even though they appear healthy on the outside, they're not healthy for me on my inside, is super important.
Right. And that was the problem with my metabolic makeover program, is that it was, kind of the same plan. Of course, you can adjust it if you're vegetarian or vegan or dairy free or gluten free. But it was still not as specific or as healthy as it could have been for that particular person. So each food is going to have a specific response within your body. So for me, my high ones were salmon and edamame, cottage cheese. I could eat other cheeses, but not cottage cheese. And I think you had oregano, vanilla, peanut butter. So even though I was making him gluten-free, very organic chocolate chip cookies, I was still creating inflammation within his body. But now that we know we have these kind of sensitivities, we can adjust and make that shift of the foods that we really need to eat for us specifically.
Well, and as an Italian, the oregano, I still sneak that in there.
Yeah.
It's just part of has to happen.
Everything in moderation.
Everything
right?
in moderation. For sure.
But because you're getting rid of so much inflammation everywhere else, you can have a little bit of inflammation.
Well, and you said that word shift. That's actually the methodology that we use here. And SHIFT stands for stress management, holistic nutrition, incorporating movement. I used to call it exercise, but I feel like that's a bad word now. Exercise is great, but really it's about movement, focusing on rest, and then the right tailored supplementation for that person. So it's really just this whole, fully whole person focused plan that's going to get them back on track.
Mm-hmm. One of the things we did at Luminate was shift our intake forms. It was mostly aesthetic based intake form. And then we actually had a man complain that we didn't have, we had a lot of questions about menstrual cycle and for women. And then we had a man complain that we didn't have enough manly questions on the intake form.
Yeah.
And it really kind of, not, I don't know, triggered me, but it opened my eyes to like, oh, okay, we do need to include men in this conversation. We do, I would say for a medical spa clinic, we do have a high amount of men in our office. And we try to keep it very gender neutral and because we want to treat everybody essentially. But we made that shift happen within our intake form to incorporate all the things with wellness and aesthetics. Because if we know ahead of time that the patient is dealing with acid reflux, or they're tired, or they have low libido, or they have vaginal dryness, are they getting leg veins? If we know that this kind of circulation issue and fatigue issue and sleep issues are happening, then we can treat them from the very beginning and they're going to get better results overall with their skincare treatments.
Yeah, I actually wish more men would come on board. I mean, we all have skin, right? Doesn't matter what it looks like. We all have skin. So I really do wish more men would do that. But, one of my favorite stories is actually from one of my family members. Interestingly enough, he actually came to visit me in the hospital when I was dealing with my cardiac arrest recovery. And he's like, well, when you get out, I want to work with you. I want to do your program. I think it's just the fact that I had survived that and the functional health principles I was living spoke to him. But the biggest thing they were facing is they had 2 miscarriages. They were actually on their last round of IVF. They were about to fly to Greece. It was like, I think 3 months down the road from when we met. And he's like, well, they're telling me that my DNA in my sperm is fractured. That's the thing. And I did more research before working with him, but it actually turns out that most miscarriages are actually because of the man. They're not because of the woman. The sperm is damaged. It can actually be viable enough to create a pregnancy, but not support it all the way to term.
So early miscarriages.
Early miscarriages. Yeah. So anyway, so he and I worked together. I did all my testing with him. We changed his lifestyle, changed everything he was eating, the way he was sleeping, the way he was exercising and moving. And they were actually able to get pregnant on their own for the first time ever, carried the baby to term, got a free trip to Greece for fun. And now they have a beautiful daughter. So it's, to me, I'm always reminded every time I work with someone, it's like, I don't know, how is this going to work out? They're dealing with all these issues. But then getting to the end of the yellow brick road with them is just a beautiful thing every time. So that's part of what I love, what I get to do. It's almost like I get to be like this detective or this, for this person, like, here's the case in front of me. Now, if remember those like detective shows, they have like a wall, like all these strings are connected to different points. And they're trying to find the killer. That's what it feels like to me. It's like, here's all these tests I've done. Now I get to pinpoint all this together, and here's the symptoms we're dealing with, and I get to find this answer. The bad guy, if you will, but I love it. It's super rewarding, the things I get to do every day, and it's on top of seeing them better, I get to develop these relationships with these clients because it's very intimate. I mean, even aesthetics. I mean, you're working on a very intimate level with someone in their life. They're telling you all the things they're going through. I hear about marriages, struggles in those things, struggles with past issues, just everything they're dealing with. Most of the time, someone's in tears. In my office,
every day
in my office when we're talking to them. So it's it goes beyond just like, oh, I want to feel good and have energy. It's like, no, this is like you are completely transforming your life if you can get things on the right track.
Yeah, it's really fun seeing patients that we've had for like 10 years or more longer, and then they refer their friends, and we really kind of created a community where everybody's just like rising up and turning into little luminators together.
Yeah, actually, I actually tell this to every client because part of the testing, I actually coach them for as long as we need to work together. But I always tell them my goal for you is that you never need me again.
Yeah.
Because I want them to know themselves so well and know their body and know how to handle their own life. They really don't need me again. I want to work myself out of a job. That's the goal.
Speaking of knowing yourself so well, one of my other favorite tests that you run, Micah, is called the DNA Company genetic test. And they do have a portal, but I actually printed my DNA test out, and it's probably like this thick, like 2 or 3 inches thick. And it is like reading a book about yourself. It literally is reading a book about yourself. But one of the things I like the glycanage testing, where Micah said to do it as a couple, the DNA testing is also very interesting to do as a couple, because it talks about how that stress response and how you respond to stress and how people perceive your response to stress. And just to kind of like out myself, people, and according to my DNA, people will walk on eggshells around me when I am upset, just because I don't have like a huge stress response. Like, you can't necessarily see it, but I'm not going to talk to you. I'm not going to say anything. But I think that is obviously like a really awkward response, but that's their response to my response. And then when I read his response to my response, like, he gets upset. His genetics is to get upset when somebody's not talking to him or I shut down. And so it's almost like going to a couples therapy when you read that part of how do you handle stress and how do people handle stress around you, and then how does that person handle your type of stress. So it's really kind of interesting to see the genetic component that goes into like everything that we do.
Yeah, and when you think about genetics, the way I like to describe, and because I love that test too, is really genetics are like a gun that doesn't have bullets loaded into it. The lifestyle things, the things you choose, load that gun with the type of bullets. You can either shoot bullets of health and optimization, or you can shoot bullets that are going to damage you and cause you to, not live to your fullest. So, yeah, I love that test. Actually, one of my clients recently came in, her hair was thinning. She's like, I'm losing hair in clumps. I don't know what's going on. So we ran that test and found out that she had a specific gene that, if expressed, would cause her to lose her hair. So she and I worked together on an action plan to like change her lifestyle. And I love that test too, because it gives you like action plans. It's not like, here's a bunch of genes and good luck understanding that. No, it's like, here's the things to do to actually reverse that. So we did. Her hair came back as stronger as ever. And she was doing like weight training in a sauna. It was like crazy stuff. But it's amazing just like understanding your own blueprint, what it can do. And that's really, DNA, functional health, all that is really just about understanding you as a unique person you are, not trying to be some cookie cutter thing, not trying to do the trends you see on Instagram or TikTok that may have worked for that one person. It's really getting deeper into understanding you.
And to that point, you don't want to do what's working for somebody else because it's so different.
Yeah.
And we hear that all the time in a consultation. Well, my friend did this, my friend did this laser, or my friend did this filler, or my friend did this exercise. Like, just because that's what they're doing does not mean that that is going to be the best thing for you and your skin and your genetics and what's happening. So having that consultation and really figuring out what's best for you is the best.
Yeah, it's funny too. Like when someone comes in with Botox, like, my friend got 40 units. That's what I need. Like, no, you don't have the same, any of that. So yeah, it's just, like I said, really not to bash on Western medicine again, but not just to like come up with this cookie cutter plan that everybody's on, but to really have this unique thing is such a difference, and the results are so different.
Mm-hmm. It is hard coming from internal medicine. We do have a specific series of events that we have to go through and really try to figure out like what is next step. And part of that is obviously like, you don't want to get sued, you don't want malpractice. Like, did you miss a step? Like, you can't miss those steps when you're in traditional medicine. And then also like insurance doesn't pay for kind of this alternative medicine testing or this deeper dive testing because it's all considered preventative. And unfortunately, our insurance doesn't care about preventative. That is a whole nother topic.
Yeah, we're not going to touch on that one. We'll stay away from that.
But I love the DNA test. I love the MRT test. What would be the other tests you'd recommend for patients to kind of start with?
Well, I talked about this a little bit, but the gut microbiome test for sure. Yeah. It's actually called the GI map. And what it's doing is mapping out your gut microbiome. It's showing us the healthy bacterial strains. We have eons more bacteria that are not our own versus what ours are. So cells in our body that are, we'll call them foreign versus our own cells. So understanding how those all work together, because they're communicating as well. These bacteria in our gut are helping us to break down foods. They're sending signals to the brain. They're essentially doing a million things. They're helping our immune system stay strong. So keeping them healthy is key, and really understanding that gut microbiome is one of the biggest things you can do to turn your situation around, for sure.
Absolutely. Well, that's all for episode 3. If you want to learn more about our testing, about me and Micah, go to luminateclinic.com.
Thank you so much.